a top 5 matchup between number 2 Georgia on the road at number 4 Alabama. We have the Bulldogs laying a point and a half, total of 49 and a half. So Nick, let me get your initial read on this line, because honestly, I was a little surprised that the line was this short. Did you think the line was going to be bigger with Georgia laying more points on the road here?
Honestly, no, because it is still Alabama at home. And I mean, you're
Yeah,
watching that offense and the points that Alabama's putting up right now, or Bama, as they will say out there. You can only call them Bama.
Bama.
I mean, Bama, Bama, roll damn tide. I mean, listen, I understand that Nick Saban's not there anymore, but I mean, Ryan Williams is really the X factor out there in terms of like a deep threat. And then you look at Alabama, the rest of that offense, they can run the ball between quarterback and multiple running backs back there. And Jalen Milroe can just, I mean, if you're not crowding the line, he's going to take advantage of that too. So Georgia's not the same Georgia, especially defensively, that we've seen at their peak when they've sort of overtaken Alabama as the team in the SEC, despite the SEC championship game last year. So I'm not overly surprised. In fact, I even like Alabama in this game to begin with, just because, I mean, putting them at home, I think, gives it's certainly a major advantage that's there. This means something, obviously, to Georgia, given what happened, again, in the SEC championship last year. But the line doesn't surprise me, honestly, as I think some other people may have been. Because, listen, look at Georgia last week. They beat Kentucky by 1. They put up 13 points. That's going to be a problem. They were 24.5-point favorites heading into that game against Kentucky. So some of it may be the market adjusting to what we saw and a little bit of an overreaction against Kentucky. But you can't just, throw that game away and not look at what Georgia did against Kentucky.
Yeah, I think for me, that is part of the handicap, is that Georgia looks beatable. They haven't been beaten, but still, they don't look like the dominant force that we were expecting to start the year. So going on the road to Alabama is no small feat. And plus, when you have to deal with the likes of somebody like Jalen Milroe, who has extreme high upside. Because when you have a dual threat quarterback in college football, it feels like a cheat code. And what we've seen from Georgia's offense thus far, I feel like it's been really conservative. Like, I remember watching, I think it was the Clemson game, and it was the first half. And I thought to myself, they have all these athletes. Why aren't they using them? It feels like they're just trying to, play, trying to possess the ball and keep it away from Clemson, when Clemson is the way worse team. I don't know why they're not laying the beat down on this team. So I don't know if they're playing scared. I don't know if it'll be different when you have, Kirby Smart finally returning to Alabama and not having to face Nick Saban. But I do think Alabama will come prepared. As far as this total goes, because maybe if you don't want to pick a side, you can look at a total here. 49 and a half. It feels like a low total for a college game, but this one's going to have a playoff feel to it. Do we think this game is lower scoring, or does it make you nervous when you have playmakers on both sides of the ball?
So I'll be honest with you. I lean under 49.5, but I'm not overly confident in it just yet. I'd love to see that number prop up just a little bit to get like a 50 or a 51 and take the under there. But I mean, one of the things Georgia really wants to do, right? Carson Beck wants to establish the run. That's like when he really thrives as a quarterback. They establish the run early, and then he can get out there and throw the football. That's really tough against Alabama. They're not going to allow them to establish the run. So it's going to make it that much harder, and it's going to probably limit in some capacity the offense and the versatility that they can bring to the table here. So if you're getting a bunch of 3 and outs, or there's no rhythm, especially on one side when it comes to Georgia, with Alabama then trying to run the football on the other side, it kind of makes me lean under in that direction here, where Alabama, Kalen DeBoer, would be more than happy to run the football if he needs to. Obviously, again, they put up at least 42 points in every single game so far. But I look at Georgia against Kentucky, and I look at what, obviously, Alabama can do defensively and running the football. And that's kind of why I lean towards the under 49.5. There's a reason why that is a lower total, Dale, but you're right. There are playmakers on both sides. It's just we haven't seen that consistently from Georgia, and Alabama doesn't have to do that to win the football game.
Yeah, I think we see a lower scoring affair, especially when you have those games that kind of have the playoff feel to them. I just feel like they play closer to the vest. All right, some other games on the schedule for this weekend. We have Virginia Tech at number 7, Miami. Big spread here, Canes laying 17.5. I think the only story in this one is, can Miami go through the rest of the season without getting a loss? Because right now it looks like the only decent team in the ACC. We've got number 15 Louisville on the road at number 16 Notre Dame. We've got the Irish laying 4.5 in that one. And then number 19 Illinois on the road at number 9 Penn State. Penn State laying a big number, 17 is your spread there. So Nick, of those games, do any of these interest you?
I mean, I can't wait to see Illinois Penn State. I think watching Illinois last Friday against Nebraska, I mean, we see now you've got some great quarterback play there in Luke Altmaier. And I mean, he's thrown for, what, like 800, I think it's like 862 yards, hasn't thrown a pick yet. I mean, you're watching, really, I think what Illinois was able to do was show us that they can go into a hostile environment and play well and not get overwhelmed by the situation, which is a great spot for them to be in, going and seeing Penn State the way that they are there. I think that's too big of a number. Penn State minus 17 is I think Illinois covers in that game. They've shown that they can already get into that position where they can make a game a lot closer and play in those hostile environments. So I'm looking at all of them. I think from a betting perspective, I like Illinois plus 17. But I will say this, watching Miami and Cam Ward, man, like you're right. They need to run the table to get to the SEC championship game or to the ACC championship game. But it's that game is more just about watching Cam Ward in Miami and what they've become this year versus like what Virginia Tech can necessarily do. I mean, Miami can just run the ball if they need to and just run out the clock and get past Virginia Tech, which is really underachieved compared to being looked at as a dark horse team in the ACC. In terms of betting, I love Illinois plus 17, but in terms of just watchability, seeing Cam Ward in Miami, that is a fun team to watch right now.
And as crazy as it is to say, guys, I kind of think they're the better team. Like, watching Georgia these first couple weeks, Carson Beck's the best pro prospect in college football from the quarterback position. He's really good. Georgia's O-line hasn't impressed me. Their skill position players aren't very good, especially compared to what Alabama has. Obviously, they have a lot of guys dealing with legal trouble and all that. But, like, their receivers and tight ends and running backs aren't used to what we're seeing out of Georgia. Defensively, they're still really good. They don't have a defense, though, that just, like, scares me to death like they normally have. So I kind of think Bama's better. You combine that with the fact that they're at home. And look, this is Kellen DeBoer and Kirby Smart's first meeting, which is going to make this game really awesome. And it's DeBoer's first game in the SEC. Chelsea, me, you, and Jenks were talking about this game over the summer, and I liked Bama 3.5 because I thought the narrative was everybody likes Georgia now to run college football, run the SEC. Saban's retired. He's the only coach that could beat him. And wouldn't it just be so college football that Bama wins this game and everybody's like, oh, my God, Saban's retired, and they still are beating Georgia. Like, what are we going to do, kind of thing. So now that it's down to 1.5, I don't like it as much, but I think they're going to win the game. I really do. I would take Bama in this. It's going to be an awesome game, but I like Bama.